everything's an opportunity. Absolutely everything. And right now, it's not to diminish the pain that people are feeling, or that any of us are, or the stress. Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich says, opportunity often comes disguised as temporary misfortune or defeat. What looks terrible right now, it actually is what opportunity looks like. And if you have the eyes to see that and you can just switch your perspective, I think it keeps you really at peace during something like this, because you see it for what it really is.
What's up? Hey, everybody. This is Go Live with your host, Joshua Scott, except we're not live. Facebook right now, it's broke. It's 2:11 Eastern time, PM on Tuesday, and we were scheduled to go live here at 2 o'clock. We've been sitting here about 10 minutes just trying to push it through to Facebook, and man, nothing. And lots of other people are having problems as well. So we're going to pivot. We're just going to shoot and record and post later. But guys, I'm super excited about my host today. This is Dr. Galen. Hey man, say what's up.
What is up to the Joshua Scott Tribe Nation? It's good times to be here.
I know.
Very excited to be here, man.
Galen is one of the founders, and I mean, I'll let you describe it better, but one of the founders, owners, just pioneers of Thrive Dentistry, and really doing something different and unique in the dental space. And immediately, they've always stuck out to me. I think, gosh, I probably just randomly found you guys on Instagram, and I think it was your aesthetics that caught my eye. Like, here's some people that are doing something different, and I think you probably get a lot of attention for that. And then every now and then you and I would chat, and you'd say, "Hey, I love what you're doing, bro." And I'm like, "No, I love what you're doing, bro." And you're like, "No, I love what you're doing."
And we would do that. Little bromance going back and forth, right?
I know, yeah. And then we actually got a chance to meet last December in Phoenix at the DIA conference. So give these guys a little background on you and what you and Davina have built, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So, as Joshua said, my name's Galen. I'm a dentist. My wife is also a dentist, Davina, and we built this company, 3.5 years ago now, 2016. And it was, at the time, it was purely a business based upon the life we wanted to live. I mean, it was nothing like it is now, in the sense that there was no audience, there was no real brand recognition. We just didn't enjoy dentistry the way we were doing it. It felt like if we're going to do 5 days a week, 4 days a week, seeing 20 patients a day for the rest of our life, it's not even that I didn't like dentistry. I love dentistry. I love clinical stuff. It just didn't feel like that was going to give me the opportunity to be all the other stuff that I want to do in this life, So I think there's like a heartbeat. It's one of our sayings in our company, like, if death is inevitable, make thriving non-negotiable. Yeah. And that was just really like the heartbeat of it was, man, I don't know how long you have, but I know I want to live life and I want to live it to the fullest. So we got to create a different model and a different system for living that. And that's what it is. That's what Thrive is.
So now how long, okay, so you guys started Thrive 3.5 years ago. How long were you practicing before that?
Yeah. So we both graduated 2013. Okay. And I worked as an associate for fellow in the ACD, brilliant dentist, the first year. Learned a ton. It was a tough year. It was a tough year, as most associates can attest to. It doesn't work out very often, but still I have immense respect for the guy. Davina was like driving 3.5 hours a day, 4 hours a day, to and from her job, and it was just kind of a miserable experience. But clinically, we developed the Thrive bioaesthetics model, which is really kind of the everything we do in my clinical practice is what our courses do, right? It's like, how do you go fee for service? How do you brand yourself? How do you do virtual consults? They're just miniature courses that teach what I do. Okay. And that became a thing in late 2014, early 2015.
Okay. So now then, how did you, who were some of your early influences in that bioaesthetic type movement that were pushing you that way?
Yeah. My first guy right out of school was really, so Dwayne Bierce is his name. Okay. Beautiful, brilliant cosmetic dentist. But he was just doing a ton of stuff with resin. He was a gorgeous resin veneer doc, which was our very first master class I started teaching. And, I should say this too, Joshua, we have we teach our courses in a different way. I think a lot of flack that we got right out of the gate was like, you're 7 years old. How are you teaching a master class on this? Yeah. Which I thought was completely valid. If I was truly saying I'm a master at this, it couldn't get any better. But the way we really have always seen teaching is we're there for the people who are just behind us. So I got to a level after a few years of doing resident years where I thought, hey, I'm pretty good. And I was. Was I a Felipe Villaverde? No. Was I a Felipe Becerra? No. And these are like guys who are absolutely iconic, right? Was I a Newton Fall? No.
Yeah.
But those guys can teach me. It's harder for them to teach someone who doesn't do resin veneers at all, because there's such a distance between what they really are dealing with at this level. And one of the things that we noticed is that the technique they could teach, but how do you get your first case? How do you get a person to even say yes to you at that level? Well, I was there. I'm hungry still. So I know that better than anything. And I may not be able to teach you every nuance of the technique, but I can teach you how to convert.
Yeah.
I can teach you what it looks like that. And that's really where all of our courses have come from, is we're always going to be just ahead of our people. And, that's what keeps it fresh.
Yeah. Well, and part of the reason I was asking too is I feel like we're running into more and more clients in that kind of bioaesthetic type lane. Yeah. And even helped a group put together their online presence called Dentistry's Optimal Model, Dan O'Rourke, those guys, and love the work that they're doing as well. So I think it's going to be, as I look ahead the next 10 years, I think that that's going to be a place that picks up momentum. I think airway is going to be a huge conversation the next 10 years as well. So I love what you guys are doing. Now, where did the aesthetic side of stuff and the way you guys, just your design value, where did that come from? Is that you? Is that a designer you guys are working with?
Yeah, it's a good question, man. So I say it always comes from my dad and my mom.
Okay.
Yeah. Davina is like, she's like the brains of her operation. All right. She's like our visionary.
Okay.
She's the one that sees things that I can't see. I mean, she has a kind of an uncanny ability to know where things are headed.
Okay.
And so she sees more the trends and knows how to do that. What I really kind of brought initially was just, I love beauty. I care for beauty. It's like just an absolute value set for me.
Yeah.
My dad spent 2 years in Taiwan. And so he brought a lot of, I just always have loved Japanese architecture, Chinese architecture. They understand minimal aesthetic in a way that I think most of the other world doesn't. So he brought a lot of that. He's a home builder, an architect, designer. My mom's an artist. Bring those two together, and that's what I was raised with. It was just, art was a huge thing. So
yeah. Well, I love it now, but do you get around in Photoshop, and are you producing the graphics? Is that Dylan? Who's doing that?
Yeah. So we work pretty hand in hand. It's a great combination, because Dylan brought, I could very easily without ego say that Dylan has sharpened my eye in ways that I never would have had before. And I think vice versa. So, I should show you some of the graphics. The way we'll do things is I'll write something on a piece of paper, draw it out, and be like, all right, bro, this is what I see in my head, man. Make this happen. And I paint him a word picture, right? Then he comes back with it, and it'll be 80% there. And then I'll say, okay, I need you to make these refinements. And then he'll take it just a little extra step. So we go back and forth a little bit, but yeah, man, he's been instrumental, man. The guy's killer. He's got a good aesthetic.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's funny, man, because I can get around in Photoshop for sure. I've got some design skills. I rarely use them anymore, honestly, just because we've got 3 basically designers on the team now. But one of our lead designer, we've been doing work together for 20 years, and so. In the beginning, I think it was, there was kind of some of that, and I would mock something up in Photoshop, and then he'd clean it up for me and all that. Now I'm just hey, I'm thinking I want something like this. And he's like, yeah, and that's the technical way it happens. And then it produces.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
And then it shows up. But it's helpful to me. I don't know how you feel, but having I can get around some video editing. I can get around in, Photoshop. It definitely helps me communicate well, it helps me lead a creative team, number one. But it helps me communicate ideas way better because I understand processes too.
Well, I'm even looking, I mean, I'm not sure if it's you or it's Joanna, but like your book's behind you, right? Like,
yeah, that's me, bro.
Gradient.
Dude,
It's color gradients.
This is my office,
beautiful.
Man. She doesn't.
Beautiful, man.
She's not allowed in here.
She's not allowed in here. She's not allowed in here.
Yeah, it's a really rough spectrum, but yeah, it goes from like white, and then it just kind of, What's tough?
It's got the vibe.
Yeah. What's tough with this is when I need to find a book, right? Because I jump on Google a bunch, and I'll just like Google the title and then look at the image. I'm like, oh, it's yellow. Okay, it's like right over here. Because you just forget. There's no order to it. Yeah.
Well, that's something that we could probably riff on a little bit together because it's interesting. We're finding a lot more in our marketing and what we're teaching our docs is that, Davina is a lot more like rugged. Let's get it out there. The message is what matters. And beauty is an aesthetic are such values to me because I'm a clinical dentist that as we're producing something, I want to make it look pretty. Yeah. And it's easy to lose the efficacy of something in the beauty sometimes. And I think a lot of dentistry has actually kind of done that where on the macro scale, we care so much about the technique of something and that it's done precisely that we've lost the humanity of it, which is why dentists struggle because they can't actually tap into that anymore. Yeah. And so even in our marketing, we're going a bit more rogue and a bit more like just raw because it's what actually connects to humans.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's that classic battle of form versus function, Yeah. And design world. I mean, we regularly have that conversation where we're like, hey, this is probably too much form and it needs to come a little bit more function, or this is entirely like the function nailed it, but we need to it's got to look prettier, And so I think as creators, we're always trying to figure out what that balance is, and whether that's with the client or even our own product. Has there been a sense with you guys, and I'm at some kind of a whole nother direction here, just because selfishly, I've got you here, and these are the questions I want to ask. But like, have you guys had a progression here of getting into dentistry and like this marketing and going, okay, here's who we are, and then realizing like, let's keep pushing it, like let's keep getting a little bit edgier? Has that happened? Yeah.
I mean, the truth is, brother, like Davina and I are both rough around the edges, just naturally. That's kind of who we are because I care so much. Probably our most fundamental belief system is growth. And I really do believe if you're not growing, you're dying. So to do that, you're always going to be pushing the boundaries. Even people who are comfortable around you, who are growth oriented. Yeah. If you're truly a leader, you're going to push them out of their comfort zone. And at times it's going to be edgy and it's going to be polarizing and it's not going to feel good. But I'm happiest when I'm doing that. I'm happiest when I'm paving a new path. And so I think when your guys' brand is beautiful and what you guys say is truthful. And I do think that there's a curve to it, and people will start to kind of catch on to that. And it's almost like, can you keep paving when you still need that groundswell to catch up with who you were 2 months ago, 3 months ago? Yeah. Yeah. And that's just what we're finding,
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I was having this conversation with one of our clients yesterday, Ashley Hovez, because about 3 years ago we did her site, and she really gave us permission to be creative and to think outside the box. And we've always we definitely have a high creative aesthetic value to our work. We always have, but I think the first year or two there was this, but how's dentistry going to respond to that? And is it too edgy? And is it too much? And so we kind of held back, but then we've had some of these projects where people are like, go do it, push it. And it's come out beautiful. And those have been my favorite pieces of work. And so about 3 years ago, I just told the team, I was like, this is our identity, man. This is our responsibility to push this. And the industry needs it. At the end of the day, I'm like, it's better for the industry if there's some people out there pushing the aesthetic, the human, all those things, creativity. So yeah.
Dude, I think this is a topic we could talk about and probably riff on with a couple of cocktails in hand for a while. But it is the truth. I mean, so you have I have a really big, strong philosophy background, studied philosophy. And in our talks, I know that you kind of have some of those pieces too, right? And we approach a problem differently than some might.
Yeah.
Because we have a care for that. And that, I feel like that's part of the DNA of how we think is important. And a lot of people are so busy because their lives are busy that it behooves people like you and I who have created a bit more time or a different style to trailblaze. I consider that my privilege.
Yeah.
That's my job.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't necessarily be concerned with how many people are saying yes to it. It's more that I look forward, reach a hand back, whoever grabs on, grabs on.
Yeah.
And I think that disconnection or that, not being attached to the metrics is actually what allows you to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great segue, because I know you guys have a really strong faith, as well. And so like when you're in a time like this, what is your personal, when you mentioned philosophy in your background, and I mean,
yeah.
What's your mindset? What are you doing to keep your mindset right? Like, what are you doing to help others? Where's that all coming from?
Yeah. Davina and I have a phrase that we've kind of adopted from one of our coaches, but it's something that I've just always resonated with. I love it. And it's, and you can replace God with whatever you want, but God is good all the time.
Yeah.
And when I hear that phrase, what I'm really hearing is that, everything's an opportunity. Absolutely everything. And right now, it's not to diminish the pain that people are feeling, or that any of us are, or the stress, the anxiety, but it is, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich says, opportunity often comes disguised as temporary misfortune or defeat. And that's what it looks like. So what looks terrible right now, it actually is what opportunity looks like. And if you have the eyes to see that, and you can just switch your perspective, I think it keeps you really at peace during something like this, because you see it for what it really is, not, oh my gosh, I'm defeated. It's more like, oh, this is the warning sign of what could be.
Yeah.
And so we're just, we're always optimistic, but not optimistic in a magical thinking sort of way. It's more like, okay, now it's time to do the work.
Yeah.
This is the time.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it, 2008? And the companies that came to the forefront, right? You had Uber, Slack, Hulu, Peloton.
Yeah.
I mean, what are people riding right now in their spare time watching webinars? They're on Pelotons, right? Are taxis a thing anymore? Not really.
Yeah.
And that was because they doubled down with faith that this was the moment that they've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And so I think if dentists can shift the perspective that way, it'll be tough, but you'll come out on the other side just trailblazing, man. I mean, just guns blazing for sure.
Yeah. Did you know what's interesting? And I've thrown this fact out there in years past, but when you said that, it just dawned on me. Do you know the company that spent the most in ad spends on Google in 2009, 365 days post recession, like that kind of time period? Who do you think spent the most on Google ads in that time frame?
I don't know. I would love to know.
Amazon. So okay, but if I also say who's the biggest company in the world right now too, right?
Yeah.
So to your point, there's opportunity everywhere. And before I was on with you, I was doing a client call and we were talking about ad spends, and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, guys, your last 2 weeks are ridiculous. And they're like, is it really that bad? And I'm like, no, it's the opposite. I'm like,
it's the opposite.
It's like 10 times. I'm like 60,000 people. You got 60,000 impressions on Facebook, and normally we're at 15 to 18,000, and you had 17 phone calls in a 2-week period, and normally that's going to look like 4 to 6. And they're like, people are actually calling, and I'm like, yeah, I mean,
yes.
And so that mind share, that market share, that heart share that's available right now is crazy. What do you guys?
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to echo that. The people who really understand this stuff know that the most valuable currency is attention.
Yeah.
Because if you have a person's attention, then you have the ability to, one, ask them questions about what they really want, and then get clarity on, can you help them get what they want? And that's all business really is. What's your want? Can I serve that need? Do you want it? Okay, let's do business.
Yeah.
And in dentistry, it's no different. So having a person's attention like we have right now, the biggest mistake you could make is stopping your ad spend. The biggest mistake you can make is canceling your, working with you.
Yeah.
It's the biggest mistake a person can make, because it truly is the time to put more on.
Yeah.
You're going to see the return.
I know. You know, what's interesting is obviously we've had our challenges as well. I think anybody, most people associated with the dental industry it's a challenging time, whether you're surviving or not. But we've also had this last 2 weeks of surprisingly good new client weeks. And I think some of that is because it's that kind of, some people are freaking out and they're like, can we pause everything? And I'm like, well, no, like we can't. At the same time, people are like, hey, we think this is a great time to work on our brand. Like, we just haven't been able to slow down and do it and really figure out what our, I'm like, exactly.
Yes.
I love how you guys lead. I love your voice. You're one of the IGS accounts. When I scroll through, I don't swipe. I stop and I walk.
Well, thank you.
Because I love what you guys say. And there was even something earlier, I think the first week of this, I picked up, you said, if the herd's running one way, make sure you're looking the other way. What are some of the opportunities you're seeing, or even as this whole thing reboots, like what's going to be different? What are places where people can position, knowing where it's going to open back up?
Yeah, honestly, brother, I think there's three. I think there's three opportunities that people, as dentists, if you can see these and at least trust me that there's something here. Yeah. I do. I think, and they get the right teams behind them to make these things happen, that you could really, and actually there might even be four, but for three for sure. The first is, people are not going to want to go back to the same business as usual. It will never be the same. And because it's never going to be the same, going in, getting into your car, driving to the practice for an in-person consultation is just not going to be a thing. Yeah. Even from the standpoint of, a lot of dentists get hung up on virtual consultations in that process, because they're like, well, how can you diagnose? How can you do whatever? It's not about diagnosis. That's what people have to understand. It's not about that. It's about building a relationship. And how many dentists do I talk to that say the hardest thing for them is in the busyness of a practice and going from chair to chair and hygiene checks, there's not enough time to what? Build a relationship. So now you have that. And that is the opportunity. You can be sitting here like you and I are right now, talking to everyone in your patient pool and just deepening the trust level, because the key to sales, the key to business is trust.
Yeah.
So I think however you do it, however you decide to use a virtual consultation, it's not about selling $40,000 cases or a crown. It's about deepening your connection to your audience. And really actually starting to, what people also don't see is how so many practices are not going to listen to my advice. And there's going to be a massive redistribution of patients when this is all over. And I don't think people see that. Yeah. When that happens, you want to be the office that is trending. You want to be the office that's available, the office that sees what their new desires and needs are and can satisfy those. So I think that's the opportunity number one.
How do you think that happens psychologically in the mind of the patient? Do you think it's just people all of a sudden are like, hey, I've been without a dentist for so long, let me find one? Or do you think it's a patient base that's like, been unhappy with my dentist, I don't know why I'm going here, it's not a good experience, let me go find one? Like what's that redistribution? What's driving it?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of different things. It's multifactorial for sure. You have to ask, like, I have patients, about half my patient pool flies in to see me.
Okay.
Florida, Pittsburgh, New York, Utah, you name it. Why would you not go to the person that you've been going to? And what it really comes down to is an awareness and a satisfaction of that innate desire to be seen and to feel special.
Yeah.
Every one of us wants to be seen and feel special. Like every single one, myself included. All right. And when we don't get that, there's a natural inclination or drive within us to go find someone that will give that to us. And if this time period is not one where you see your patients and you go over the top, for them, what they're actually going to start to think is, one, you don't care about me, and two, you only care about the money.
Yeah.
Unless I'm coming in to spend money with you, you don't care about me. That is psychologically what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we've been telling our docs, like, call your elderly patients and ask them, can you go deliver medicate? Can you go pick up medications? Can you empower your staff to go do certain things that, yeah, sure, TaskRabbit could do it. Sure, Uber Eats could go do it, or your staff could do it.
Yeah.
And you keep them gainfully employed and you deepen relationships. And you're that one dentist who decided to do that.
Yeah, dude, I think that's brilliant the way you said that. I think there is a cost of not communicating right now. And
Yes.
I think the ADA and the state governors and all that gave dental practices gave them permission to close, and they all went like, okay, we have to close.
Yeah.
And it's been like, no. Like, hold on, stop. Like, are you, and should you close? And maybe you have to kind of like not see patients, but you're open. It just looks different, right? Like it's your business. Like, dude. So I think that cost of not communicating is huge.
It is. I actually like the way you phrased it. I mean, it's sometimes, if you ask a patient, why did you decide to do the $20,000 case or the $30,000 case or whatever? 99 times out of 100 in that testimonial somewhere, you'll find them saying something to the effect of, I wish I'd done this sooner. I don't know why I didn't choose to do this sooner. I regret not doing this sooner. Something like that. And because that phrase is so true to people, I think that what we have to really put a price tag on is what you gave up by not choosing to do that thing sooner.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying. There's a cost to it. We don't really assess that as people.
Yeah. Opportunity cost is so hard to attribute, to like put a hard number or even like realize that in like real terms. But it's so true. I think back to the 2008 recession. And one of the things I noticed that just in myself, and I felt like was a vibe with the American public was, before that, if we went to dinner to a restaurant, took the family to dinner to a restaurant, had a okay experience, you were just like, okay. But then after that recession, when people started going back, like taking their family out to eat, and you're going to drop like $100 for a family of four, or whatever that is, $150, it was like, no, like we're going to go someplace special because we haven't been out in a while, right. And like we want to be taken care of. And so there was a sense of, if we're going to choose you as a restaurant, we want the service, because this is post-recession and everybody needs to step up their game. And I feel like that's going to happen to dentistry here through this, is like, if I go to the dentist, I want it to be somebody that I know cares about me. Like, I'm tired of the experience. Like, I don't even know why I go here. I've gone there because my parents went here,
You're so right. You give people time to think, time to talk to their friends. And that's what people are doing right now.
Yeah.
They're FaceTiming their friends and their family members, and conversations are coming up. And you better believe things are shifting in their mind. There's reprioritizations, right? And so we have to be anticipating that. And, I guess one of the analogy that I gave a lot of our docs was, this is a wildfire right now. And the thing that people will do in a wildfire is they think about, how do I put it out? How do I put it out? How do I put it out? And instead of seeing it as like the blessing that removes all of the dead, underweight, the burden, the excess, the overwhelm, the stress, all that, and anticipating it by digging the ditches, because rains always follow floods. Instead of that, they focus on the fire. And what I'm pushing them to think about is this: when this is just nature, this is the cycle. When you have a wildfire and it burns intensely, right? It's not a controlled burn by an actual fireman. If you have a high intensity fire, it will actually volatilize all of these good nutrients. And when it cools, it actually becomes hydrophobic. So when people tell you that there's always these crazy flash floods after wildfires, and it's destructive, even more destructive than the fire was, there's very real science to that, because the surface area is a water repellent. And because of that, if we don't, as dentists, start to anticipate that, we will be the people who, this deluge of patients, this excess of new patients, this redistribution, they'll run right over us. Our patients will flock out.
Yeah.
And if we're not building a queue to absorb them when they come back in, when they're like, I've been shut up in my house for however long and I need to see you. If we don't have a queue being built actively right now, if we're not on top of this proactive, you'll have 1,000 patients calling you. You won't be able to see any of them and they'll go somewhere else. And it will cripple your practice more than the fire did.
Yeah.
So you got to be proactive.
I love that analogy, and I think that that's a good it's a good segue into, because I know before when we were waiting for Facebook to be unbroke, we were just talking about your virtual consultations and you just interacting with patients through this time and queuing them up here into the future. Tell us a little bit about Vogue, that masterclass, and to be clear, it's not new. Like this isn't like a new program you built just for this response. It was something that's been there, right? That you guys have had, that you kind of stepped up and said, hey, this is something that we believed in even before this happens.
Yeah. So it's the course itself was built in the way that it has been, in a very interesting and unique way. So, I was just telling them, the docs this the other day, the ones that are in it, I said, look, I'm building a lot of this content for you actually in the moment. I have lived it first. What I'm not a big believer in is talking without walking. Yeah. So we've been doing virtual consultations and really streamlining our process for the last 3 years. And so it's effective. It works. We've got the numbers. We've got the metrics. But in building the course, we had this idea of releasing it this fall. And we had this great idea, like, this is what we'll do. We'll do it around like October, November. It'll be a great thing going into 2021. And then COVID happened. And what we realized was an opportunity. And so I probably worked, crazy hours in the last 2 weeks to put this all together. But it's also the most fresh version of a course you could possibly have because it's being built in real time. Yeah. So I'm getting questions, and these are like real dentists, like, hey, I'm struggling with X, I'm struggling with Y. I just got this as my patient objection. Well, I get to now respond to you in real time and build content that serves that, not having built it a year ago and hoping that it's still relevant. Yeah. So it's the most relevant course you could potentially have on virtual conversions. Okay. So give us like the 30-second or whatever kind of just byline for it. Like what is the course? What do you accomplish with that? Yeah, I think you're going to love this because it's totally up your alley. It's what you guys do. Yeah. So most people will think of a virtual consultation as I click on a link, I get on a video like this with you. We talk about dentistry, what I need to have done. It's typically seen as like smile transformations, right? Like the big, pretty stuff, the super expensive stuff. And I think just by nature of all those things that we've come to associate with virtual consultations, we're missing the mark already. It's not all about the pretty stuff. I use virtual consultations for everything, literally everything. So we have to redefine it first from that standpoint. We also have to realize that the consultation itself is just a pipeline. And every pipeline needs to have two things, an input and an output. But what we've done is people just focus on the pipeline. So it's a link, but why should a person click your link, Joshua? Like, why would they do that in the first place? Do they know it exists? What's the system behind it? Have you built trust with them? All of these questions are not asked. So what Vogue does is it creates the input. We spend a ton of time on what you guys do. Brand, right? Like a person has to understand how to create a brand and a network and an ecosystem on all the different platforms and utilizing their email list to create desire, to create awareness, to create demand. When you have that, then you have a person clicking your link, and then the link just gets you on a call like this. Now you have to have the ability to connect to a person, a human being, and get out of your educational technique side of that mind, right? And not talk at, but actually question, listen, hear them, build relationship. Be okay with that call ending and not having talked about dentistry at all. Yeah. Knowing and trusting that in time you will have the output, which is building a patient pool that loves you. Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what Vogue is. So is the technical part involved in that, of building that out on the site? Is it
how you're handling the consultations? Is it all of it?
Yeah. So for the first week, so it's a 30-day live step-by-step one-on-one with me, like a mentorship program.
Okay.
So we've got Voxer, and Voxer's great because I can give people homework day by day. Every single day there's a piece of homework. So it's build this out, shoot this video, write this copy. So people are building out an entire ecosystem of content, consult link, etc., and getting people onto calls and then understanding this is what I want you to start asking, and then understand where it's going sideways, and then let's refine it and let's get you back onto another one. So the first week is all about building the pipeline. It's like, what things do you need? What's your video conferencing solution? What's your scheduling solution? It's all the brass tacks stuff. And then we step into, what's your brand look like right now? Where do we need to triage this thing? Where do we need the help?
Yeah.
And then that's for 2 weeks. And then throughout the whole thing, we're also talking about conversion. But sales is a skill set. People don't think that. They see a person says yes or they say no. That's not true.
Right.
Not true. It's not even true at all. So it's your ability to connect. So for basically 30 days, I work with you one-on-one to get your entire thing. It's pretty killer.
Yeah. No, it's so funny, man. Cause sales can be so short-sighted to, it's a conversion or it's not. But you'd be surprised how many people I talk to that, come back 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later. And maybe they built another website with another company 4 years ago. And they were just like, I just couldn't pull the trigger on you guys, or wasn't sure, went this way, wasn't happy, came back. And I think a lot of that's having the patience, right? Having the patience and if you're building a relationship, I don't know. There's two parts of it. I'm like, if I'm building a relationship with you, I don't necessarily care if we do business. I care about you as a person. I want to give you advice, steer you in the right direction. Right. The other part of it is if we're building a relationship, then, 4 years down the road, if the time's right, then let's talk again,
It's so true. I can't tell you how many times I've had patients where it was a no at first. And all I really care about, so one of the big focus in our sales training, the way Davina and I do it, is one, you've got to be unattached to the yes or the no.
Yeah.
And that's because I think people take denials and rejection so personally.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, well, they said no, I don't want to do that anymore. Because it's painful a little bit. You feel rejected on a personal level. Our biggest piece first is we've got to remove that. It's about service. And if you're truly about service, then you don't care if it's a yes or no. Yeah. But you do have to be dedicated and committed to them getting a clear yes or no. When a person tells you, let me think about it, and then never calls you again, that's not a clear yes or a no. That was, I didn't feel comfortable and I got to go.
Yeah.
If a person says, I got to go talk to my spouse and never gets back to you, same thing. So your ability to actually help a person bypass an objection, which may or may not actually be all that real. I can tell you from personal experience and from all of our docs, 95% of the time, that objection of I can't afford it is not actually I can't afford it. It is them saying, I don't know how I would afford it.
Yeah.
And that gives you the invitation to see, can we figure out a solution?
Yeah.
So it's just so different, so much bigger than what people have made it out to be. It's expansive, and it's also incredibly in service to people, I think. I think it's the greatest thing you can do.
Yeah, for sure. I think, how do you see this work best, that whole virtual consultation? Is it for bigger, more comprehensive cases? Are you using it to vet those out on the front end before you're putting aside, chair time in the office? What are they? Yeah.
I do it all, but I think that's a great thing. So I always look at it from, I practice a unique way, and I never tell a person practice like me. I think there's a lot of models out there, which is come fit into my model.
Yeah.
And I don't actually think most people should practice like I do. I really don't. Unless you have a real passion to teach or to build some crazy other side hustle, you probably don't need to have only one case a week. You just don't need that.
Yeah.
That's just my style. But that being known, what I do care about is that you apply the principles of how I did it and then design your life and your practice using those principles. So for a lot of docs, weeding out the inefficiencies in your practice, I think that's one of the big blessings of this time. That's the opportunity number 2 is how could you restructure your entire practice? Because there's too much excess. Like even from the standpoint of like really looking at your numbers, how many endos are you really doing? And if you're like a just in case doc, well, maybe we reassess that, right? So if you have a bunch of consults that are like waste of time most of the time, or you're seeing a bunch of patients that are low grade insurance and you don't want to be taking that anymore, could you use a virtual consultation process to weed that stuff out?
Yeah.
And not even just weed out, but also convert, because you'll have some people who say like, do you take my insurance? And it's an easy out to be like, no, I don't. Goodbye. Or you could start to ask them questions that are intelligent questions of like, why does that matter to you?
Yeah.
Why does it matter that I take your insurance? What are you really looking for? If you had the best possible health possible here, and you had someone taking your insurance, which one would you choose? It's an opportunity to convert people from this insurance mindset, which I think is so backwards, to what do I want for me? What's best for me?
Yeah. Dude, that's good. Cause I actually, you're talking and I'm like, I failed at this last Friday on a sales call. And now I'm feeling like, dang it, Josh, I could handle this so much better. But, and I don't get a lot of these, but every now and then you just get a call and the person's just, you could tell they're just like, well, how much? Like, I'm like, well, hey, what I'd like to do is, get to know you a little bit. What do you have going on? Like, how can I help? And I'll tell you about how we do things. And she's like, well, but what about how much is this? And so finally we start getting into it and it's pricing. And she's like, how much is your hosting? And I'm like this. And she's like, oh my gosh, why is that so high? She's like, you can host for Google for $10 a month. And I'm like, you can go build a website for $1,000 too, but that's not what we do. And I kind of got a little, cause
a little badly, a little sassy.
I know. Go get your $10 hosting. Go get your $1,000 website. But like, why are you talking to me? But I could have handled that so much differently. I could have said, tell me why hosting for $10 a month is an important feature for you. So.
You know what though? I mean, it's easy. It's easy to get kind of riled up. Like we all have our little buttons. I got mine too, man.
Yeah.
And it is. But 2020.
Yeah. No, I think this is great because I'm seeing it huge. Like obviously there's this need right now and people are rolling it out. I think one of the places I see it really playing a role is especially those practices that are trying to market to like dental implant cases, more restorative, full arch restorative, like that type of stuff. They're struggling to like vet those out better on the front end. And I think this could be a little bit of a better process because obviously if you start running ads, you get 20, 30 leads, you can't get all those in for consultations. So like what's that first step or second step, third step to kind of get them through and figure that out? I also think, man, the other part of this that I'm seeing is as practices start marketing to, like dental implants specifically, they're building up. Like every month they're collecting 20, 30 people that are interested. And if, 4 or 5 convert, but what are you doing with the other 15 to 25? And then by the end of the year, now you've got, 500 people that have contacted us about dental implants. Like, what are we doing with those?
Because I think people will think they either think short term or they think long term.
Yeah.
And they kind of remove the whole need and ability, I think, for people to create short, midterm, and long-term game plans for patients and for the practices. So when you got people who are saying yes, you have to understand, like I call it bridge income. The people who are saying yes right now create bridge income to get you to the midterm. And those midterms are going to help you, in addition to the short terms, get you to long-term. That's the way business is built, right? Like the 5G network is being built on credit. People build businesses on capital and credit, and it's no different this way. So having a game plan for how you come back to and continue to foster those relationships with people who didn't say yes is huge. Yeah. It's actually the bigger part of your business. And I think we make big mistakes by just like, never mind. Like they said no, in the same way that people will approach virtual consults. So I actually have lists, and they're short-term, midterm, long-term lists of these people said yes. Now how do I take care of them and over-deliver? Every single person on this list that has said yes to treatment, I'm going to wow the fuck out of them. Can
Yeah.
I curse on this? Sorry.
It's all good, man.
I'm going to wow them.
Explicit.
I'm going to wow them. Just, yeah. I'm going to wow them to such a degree that they want to be my walking, talking billboard.
Yeah.
And then the midterm, I'm going to come back around to them. And that coming back around is, hey, are you ready to do that smile reinvention? No, it's not. It's just get on another consult and talk to them and be like, hey, what's going on for you right now? Is there any way that I can help support your business? I'm big on like, what does the person do? And how can I help feed your business? And in time, I know that if this is a true desire of yours and we stay in connection and I continue to produce content and you're following me and you see that content and you're reading my emails, yeah, at some point in time, if it's right, you'll say yes or you'll reach back out.
Yeah. 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 What, how do you guys come up with your names for your courses? Because you definitely have more of the creative approach with that.
This is dude, this is such a good question. And no one asked this question. And I love it. I love it. So I'm the one that names them all. I named our kids too. I'm the name guy. Okay. And I care a lot about what things mean.
Yeah.
You probably get this because we both have a religious, backing. So like the etymology of words and that study of it is like a thing for me.
Yeah.
But they come to me in two places, in dreams and in the shower.
Yeah. All right.
The only two places they come to me. I don't like think about it in any crazy way. It's just like they'll hit me and I'm like, that's it. I gotta go.
So like Vogue, you've got this idea in your head of, okay, I need to get some resource out there for helping people navigate virtual consults.
Yeah.
You're sleeping one night. Maybe you've had a Manhattan before you go to bed.
Maybe 3, bro.
And you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, Vogue. Is it just inspirational creative or what's the background with that?
Yeah. Well, so this is going into like some uncharted territories, brother. But okay. I do a couple of trainings on how to actually tap into your creativity. Okay. Because I think that people have kind of largely said your left brain or your right brain. Mm-hmm. And just anatomically, that's not true. You're both. It's just your ability to it's the way you've trained your neural pathways. So I think there's actually ways for you to retrain them and tap into both sides and to use those correctly. So I do a couple of trainings around this, but there's actual very tangible ways of tapping into, I call it tapping into, that creative voice that's inside each and every one of us. And one of those ways is actually so there's a whole bunch of physics behind this, but in taking a shower, people will say they get ideas in the shower.
Yeah.
Or if they're swimming, they'll be like, I get these crazy ideas. And it's because water is a dampening mechanism. Okay. So when you put a material or a structure or an object in water, it actually reduces what are called the amplitudes, like the spikes of frequencies, okay. But it broadens the range by which you can actually hear things. So you get less of these like overpowering, like your cell phone, the dopamine hits that you get from, looking at a notification. Yeah. It removes those, but it opens you up to further frequencies. And at the end of the day, thoughts, ideas, they're really just frequencies. Huh. So you actually have the ability to tap into more of those by putting yourselves in environments. Here's the best way to analogize this. If you and I right now tried to tune into 88.5, we couldn't do it as human beings because we don't have the correct hardware, firmware, or even software for that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that those frequencies aren't in the air right now. They're flying through the air right now. And if you had a radio and you could tune into that frequency, you could find it. And it would suddenly just appear out of nowhere. In the same way, ideas that people have, crazy ideas for like Amazon, Uber, Studio 88, those come from somewhere. And where they come from is largely dependent upon our ability to hear them. So.
Yeah. No, I feel like that. That makes a ton of sense to me. I'm probably the same way with the shower. Where I get a lot of my ideas is running.
I was just going to tell you, yeah, that's the other one. That's the other way.
Yeah, and I don't know, but I think for me, I've always felt like it's something about that wide open space of like getting out. So I don't know if that falls in line with that as well, or if it's just I've also thought it's just the endorphin release too, of running.
So it actually has a lot to do with there's brain chemistry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of science behind the brain chemistry of that. Actually, your pineal gland and pituitary. And if you think about it, if you got a radio and you're trying to get that perfect connection, what do? You move around to try and find it. So dynamic motion actually exposes you, if you were to buy into this idea that ideas truly are a sonic frequency, which makes a lot of sense it sounds good first until you start to really analyze like physics, and you're like, okay, actually that does make a lot of sense. That whole idea or concept, when you're in movement, you're actually exposing yourself to a broader range of frequencies, and then you find that one, it hits you.
Okay.
It just hits you. So by being in different spaces and in movement and changing the actual chemistry of your body, you can. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So,
yeah. It's like, I never thought of it like that, but I know that it happens. So, so then obviously, and I'll let you go here because I know we're getting late.
No, we're good, man. I'm enjoying.
Yeah. But then the next logical step is, how do I intentionally put myself in those situations to make that happen more? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to do with that. And here's the thing that is interesting about a time like this, because a lot of people, so we talked about this at Thrive Live. I had a whole lecture about this. And I won't get into the nitty-gritty of it because it does get a little strange. It gets a little weird. You have to follow the whole lecture. Otherwise, it just sounds like craziness. But when you kind of sum it all up, stillness is what people need to find this.
Yeah.
And because you're combated or bombarded by so many frequencies during the day, literal frequencies, right? Cell phone, voices, vibration, someone outside with a leaf blower. You have so many different, you're in a coffee shop, all these frequencies consistently hitting you, that it's really hard to actually hear your voice, what you actually want to do, what you believe should happen next. And so being in stillness, it's age old, but that's where the most creativity will come from, is if you can actually detach from the busy.
Yeah.
And people have that now. You have that time now. And this is why innovation is going to be so big here.
This is actually so good that this is happening like without alcohol, because if we were at a bar at night and we started this, I would probably be giving you the eye like, what?
This can't be real, man. Nope, no.
But it's a little whack. That's probably been one of the core things I think I've been dealing with in the last 6 months. Like the last quarter of last year, first quarter of this year, up until COVID, was just so ultra busy. And, getting pulled in so many different ways as a business owner, and opportunity, like got to a point, I think what happened was the opportunities like tipped to where we just can't keep saying yes, because now it's just crazy. And what I realized through that time was while I'm at a lot of places doing a lot of things, leading a company, my creativity like suffers through that, because it's just too busy. It's too much. And really trying to find that balance of like, okay, how do I hear my voice? How do I have that creative inspiration? Maybe it's daily, but I'm like, if I could have it weekly, I think that would be a great place to start, and then
right.
that while building a business. And it's been difficult. And I think it's kind of one of the things that's forefront of my mind through these next couple of weeks is like, let's regain that and create some parameters, like some structure around it to move forward.
Well, I think when people are engineered more, like just on a DNA level, to be leaders and to be, trendsetters, it's difficult because there's real tension in your life where you'll build and then you got to come back a little bit and deliver it to the people and help them with what they're doing. But then there's always that restlessness that begins to grow in you again. They're like, I got to go back out and explore some things for me. And so there's always this kind of yo-yo effect of I create and I deliver it, and then I got to go back out and find new things. And when you lose that, it starts to feel that way. I've been there too. I've been there a lot. But this this time period has been, I think, really good from that standpoint, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, maybe we can kind of leave with this, but I had someone ask me the other day, they're like, why am I getting so many questions about going fee for service? And I'm getting dozens, probably over 100 now in terms of docs reaching out to me. And Joshua, that was not a thing before this. Like, I've been fee for service for a long time, but people are reaching out right and left, like, how do I drop insurance? It seems like it's the right time. And if you think about it from a purely logical standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because if anything, a person should be worried about having enough patients, right? So you would think you'd be wanting to almost like sign on to more insurances right now. But what I think is happening is that people have time now to think, and they're a little more still, and all these really like very true to the individual ideas and desires are coming to the surface, bubbling up.
Yeah.
And it's like, wouldn't it be cool to create an experience this way? Wouldn't it be fun to have my office look this way? Wouldn't it be fun to brand this way, create a video this way? And the limiting factor in you being able to do some of those things is that insurance doesn't really let you.
Yeah.
Not that it's actually saying you can't create that content. It's that you don't have the time for that. And you don't have the bandwidth for that. So I think people are starting to make the connection finally that, it actually has way more to do with the way I practice and almost the way I'm enslaved versus the freedom I could have if I really just said, forget it. I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time, man. Super fascinating.
Yeah, gosh, got to end it, got to wrap it up, because I keep coming up with questions because it's fascinating. I mean, I wasn't even like planning this. I just said, how do you get your names? And now all of a sudden we're
well, we can keep chatting on the back end, man. We can keep talking about it.
For sure. Hey, if people out there want to get more information about you guys, where's the best place to connect?
Best place to connect is honestly just DM us. I mean, I love relationship. I love talking to people. I love knowing what's going on. I could send you to a web page, but the truth is it may not be for you. So I would just say start a conversation with us on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah. What's your Instagram?
Who you are, what you're doing. At the Thrive Dentist.
At the Thrive Dentist. Cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, man. I think, if we could live near you guys, I mean, you're one of those couples where I'm like, gosh, if I wish we lived nearer and could interact with you guys a little bit more in a relational standpoint. So I think we would all be really good friends. But yeah, thanks for coming on. I know our crew, our audience community probably doesn't interact with you as much as some of the other guys that I have come through here. So I love this opportunity to introduce them to you. So and I think
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, this will be the future of them seeing your face and hearing about your guys' story way more. So
yeah,
appreciate
thanks so much,
time.
Man.
Yeah, I know you're busy, so
it's my pleasure, my honor, and you asked great questions. I thought you would. I knew you would. So it was very enjoyable. It's an enjoyable chat.
Yeah.
Good all stuff. Right, man. Next time with a couple of whiskeys in hand, and we'll have a good time. All right.
Yeah, let's schedule it later next time so that we can do that.
Yeah. Agreed, man. Agreed.
All right, bro. I'll see you, man.
All right, man.